In the beginning, the Israelite nation comprised 12 tribes. 12 tribes of Israel. These tribes divided into two sections. One became the Jewish people, of which the main tribes were Judah, Benjamin, Levi, minority representations of the other tribes. And the other section was the 10 tribes. The 10 tribes of Israel, headed by the tribes of Joseph, Ephraim, and Manasseh, who were further to the north. The Assyrians conquered them, took them into exile. From there they moved out. Eventually they reached Western Europe. From there they established the nations of North America, Canada, and the USA, Australia, New Zealand, and other areas, and also other peoples in Western Europe and Northern Europe, also descend from other branches of the 10 tribes. The English, the British Isles were dominated by the tribes of Joseph, Ephraim, and Manasseh, whereas the other countries received input from other tribes. Finland from Issachar, Norway from Naphtali, Denmark from Dan, Sweden from Gad, the Netherlands from Zebulun, Reuben, France from Reuben, Switzerland from Issachar, and other tribes, and there were here and there were elements from one tribe or another intermixed with elements from another, and also there were non-Israelites amongst them. Also there were Canaanites who came with them, assumably came with them, from the land of Israel, who had been assimilated with amongst them, whilst they were still in the land of Israel, and others whom they met in their journeys, and also when they reached the areas of Europe, they intermixed with them. But somehow or other, Israelite elements remain dominant and may be identified according to their tribal ancestry. So that is one section of the Israelite nation. The other section is the Jews. The Jews remained. They remained identifiable. They remained in the land of Israel. There was a period when they were taken into exile to Babylon, but they returned from Babylon, and they created the land of Judea. They also had a large diaspora from the time of the Babylonian exile. That was always important. The Jews outside of Israel, the Jews within Israel, the areas of Judea, and they gave rise to the Jewish people. Jewish people today are divided between Sephardic Jews and Ashkenazi Jews. Sephardic Jews originally meant Jews from Spain, or Jews from the Mediterranean area who had been subject to Spanish Jews, who had been subject to the influence of Jews from Spain. But nowadays the term Sephardic is applied to all non-Ashkenazic Jews. Jews who are not Ashkenazim, but are from other areas. They are referred to collectively as Sephardic Jews. The DNA indicates that the Sephardic Jews mainly come from the Near East, from the areas of the land of Israel and surroundings. On the male side, whereas the female's mtDNA comes from local North African or local Mediterranean peoples or Near Eastern peoples, but that is not 100% reliable, because mtDNA can change. All DNA can change, as we will prove, as can be proven. Animals do not change one by one. As the DNA people will try and tell you, they change in groups. They change in groups, they change collectively, and they change in a much shorter period than the scientists want to tell you, want to admit to. That is another point. We'll talk about it another time. It's worth knowing what the experts, the DNA people say. They also say that the Jews, the European Jews, are known as Ashkenazim. The males are about 50% from the Near East, from the area of Israel, and 50% from Europe, from Eastern Europe, Central Europe, also from the area of Italy and France. And so too, the females of the Ashkenazim, mtDNA, they trace it to females in Europe, and in some cases they claim a good portion of them come from an area of northern Italy, which may or may not be correct. But it's worth knowing what is taught at the moment. We consider the Jewish people to be Judah of the Bible. They are descended from Israelites. The Bible says they are descended from Israelites, or the Bible at all events identifies the Jewish people as Judah of the Bible. In biblical terminology, you have the figures of Judah and the figures of Joseph. Joseph can represent all of the 10 tribes, or especially the tribes of Joseph, Ephraim, and Manasseh, who are dominant amongst English-speaking peoples. And we have Judah. And Judah represents the Jewish people. And the descriptions given to Judah are those of the Jews today. Bottom line is that according to the Bible, the Jews are Judah. The Jews kept the law, they always kept the law, and it had been prophesied that Judah would keep the law. See Psalms 69, 108, 90, Psalms, Genesis 49:10, Zechariah 8:2-3. Psalm 6:9 says, Gilead is mine, Manasseh is mine, and Ephraim is the strength of my head. Judah is my lawgiver. Judah is my lawgiver. In Hebrew, mochechech. In other words, the maker of my law, the definer of my law. That is what the Jews are. That is what the Jews do. They learn the Talmud, they learn the Bible, and they decide how the law is to be kept, and that is what was prophesied would happen. That is what was prophesied that they would do. And this will be acknowledged by the peoples, all the peoples of the earth, and especially by the 10 tribes of Israel. In the end times, Zechariah 8:23 said, So said the Lord of hosts, in those days when 10 men of all the languages of the nations shall take hold of the shirt of a Jewish man, saying, Let us go with you. We have heard that God is with you. Let us go with you. We have heard that God is with you. Also the Jews kept the full fast and mourning over the destruction of the second temple. Zechariah 8:19 says, 8:19, Zechariah, so said the Lord of hosts, the fast of the 4th month, the fast of the 5th month, the fast of the 7th month, the fast of the 10th month shall be for the house of Judah for joy and happiness and for happy holidays, for love, truth, and peace. In other words, Zechariah is saying that in the end times, the days that up until then had been fast days, days of mourning, will become feast days when God will return. In other words, when God will once again show his face to the Jewish people, when the Jewish people will once again be accepted. At the present, they are mourning. They mourn over the fast days. The fast days, they mourn 4 times a year. On the 4th month, the 17th of Tammuz, the 5th month, 9th of Ab, and the 7th month, the 3rd of Tishrei, the fast of the 10th of Tebet. There you have it. This is what Zechariah said. He said the fast of the 4th month, the fast of the 5th month, the fast of the 7th month, the fast of the 10th month, and these are the months on which the Jews today fast. And in the future they will be days of happiness and rejoicing. And there is no other people on the earth to whom this verse, this prophecy can apply only to the Jewish people. Also, the Jews would come back to the land before the other tribes. See Micah 4:6, Hosea 6:11, Micah 4:8 predicts in the end times, the beginning of the return, the first dominion shall be to the daughter of Jerusalem, that is, descendants of Judah. Judah will return before the other tribes, and that's what the Jews are doing. They are now returning to rebuild the land. Also was prophesied in Genesis 49:10, the scepter, that is a scepter in Hebrew shevet. Shevet is a tribal recognition. In Hebrew, shevet means tribe. It means both scepter, that is staff, and also means tribe, the tribal standard. The mark of belonging to Judah shall not depart from Judah. See Genesis 49:10. The shevet, the standard of the tribe, shall not depart from Judah, nor the student of the law, that is the lawmaker, from between his feet until Shiloh come, and to him will be a gathering of peoples. So Judah will always be recognizable as Judah, and you will always have scholars who learn the law, and the Jews will be known for that, for studying the law. And this will continue until the Messiah comes. The Jews will have suffered for being Jewish, whereas other tribes will not. Therefore, the Jews at first would be loath. They would not want to recognize the tribal origins of the other tribes. See Isaiah 49:21. This is a natural reaction, and there's no reason why they should do so until they have more proof, until those people who belong to the tribes show a willingness to identify, and until the proofs that we have, that others have, the proofs of their tribal identity is known and accepted by them, and known, and check it out, prove it, and proven. And Isaiah 49, he says, verse 20, the children of whom you were bereaved, that is, they lost the other tribes, shall yet say in your ears, the place is too narrow for me, move over, so that I will dwell. They want to come back and dwell. And you shall say to yourself, the Jews shall say to yourself, this is what God is talking through the prophet, Isaiah 49:20-21. Who begot me these? Who gave birth to these, seeing that I am bereaved and solitary, was alone, orphaned, without help, exiled and rejected? And who has raised these? Where were these people coming from? Behold, I was left alone. These from where are they? That is the reaction the Jews will have in the end times when they see the lost 10 tribes returning. And this is something that we sometimes experience today. Isaiah 27 says, it shall come to pass on that day that a great shofar shall be sounded, and those lost, that is of them, those lost in the land of Assyria, those who are exiled to the land of Assyria, and those exiled to the land of Egypt, that is the Jews, shall come, and they shall prostrate themselves before the Lord on the holy mount in Jerusalem. In the end times they will return, they will come back together. We have not yet reached that stage. Manasseh ben Israel in 1604-1657, he says that Isaiah in 27:13 calls the Israelites outcasts, the Jews scattered. That is, the lost 10 tribes were cast out, but they're cast out in the group. They stayed together with the group, more or less. And they moved, they migrated as groups. In some cases, some of the groups, some of the tribes split into different sections, but they recoalesced as if guided by an unseen hand, the force of history, and they recoalesced in certain areas. As we're proven in our works, and as may be seen from history. But the Jews shall be scattered, and the reason is because the 10 tribes are not only far off from the Holy Land, but also they live in the extremities, at the ends of countries, at the ends of the continental masses. That is a prophecy that was said about the 10 tribes, that there will be the ends of the continental masses. If you look at a map of the world, the area of Israel is in the middle, and the areas of Western Europe, North America, Australia, New Zealand, South Africa, all those areas where there are collectivities descend from the tribes of Israel, they are at the continental extremities of the continents, the ends of countries. Now, hence the prophet calls them cast out, for he does not say the Israelites are to be gathered from the four quarters of the earth, because they are not so dispersed throughout the earth as the tribe of Judah is, which has synagogues all over the earth, and so on. Prophecies and indications of people who study the Bible, and they say that himself foresaw that in the end times, the area of England and the area of Western Europe will belong to Israel, will be part of Israel, because the 10 tribes in those areas apparently will re-acknowledge themselves in those regions. And those regions will be considered part of the greater land of Israel. Also, we have the union of Zarephath. Zarephath in Hebrew, Zarephath means France. Abijah, the book of Abijah in the Hebrew says that this first exile, that is the first exile of lost in tribes of Israel, will be in Zarephath. Zarephath meaning France, or according to Rashi, a great commentator, meaning France, and according to Abarbanel, there was also a great commentator, meaning both France and England. And according to Nachmanides, it means all of the northwest area of Europe. At all events, great sages, great scholars saw that the lost 10 tribes would be in the western regions. They would be at the ends of the earth. See Isaiah 24:16, 26:15, 44:8-9, 43:6, 49:6, and others. There would be in islands. Isaiah 24:15 and other sources where they are. There would be in peninsulas, Jeremiah 31:8. There would be in by Tarshish, the Atlantic Ocean area. Isaiah 69, to the west of the land of Israel, Isaiah 24:14, and more. To the northwest of the land of Israel, see Isaiah 49:12. The northland, Jeremiah 3:18. There would be in Zarephath, as we mentioned, meaning France and Britain, Abijah 1:20. There would be in many waters, several oceans, Numbers 24:7. Amongst their symbols would be a lion and a unicorn, see Numbers 24:7-9. And this is the symbol of Great Britain. This is the coat of arms of Britain, the lion and the unicorn. That was prophesied that was what their symbol would be. See Numbers 24:7-9. They would rule over other peoples. They would rule over a great multitude of nations. They would give life to other peoples. They would complete their development of other peoples. Rule over the nations. See Psalms 47:3. Genesis 27:29, 48:19. It would be recognizable as a Brit-Am. See Isaiah 42:9. See Isaiah 42:6, 49:8. It would be seafarers. There would be seafarers, Isaiah 42:10. There would be the dominant world power, Numbers